Welcome to Horror Makes Us Happy, the podcast where we ask the question, what is it about horror that makes us happy? Your hosts are Steve Becker and myself, Chris Whitman, and you can find out more about us at our website, horrormakesushappy.com. We got a link tree there with all kinds of links to our solo projects, as well as our Discord server, and links to all our previous guests, and you can go there and check out their bios and read all the things, if you won't. Before we get started, this is a horror podcast. We talk about horror things. This is the trigger warning. We may delve into sensitive subjects that may involve curses, words, or violence of the like. But that's fun. Well, I mean, it's fun to discuss.
You never know what's going to come up, basically.
Yeah.
So you've been warned.
Yeah.
But today we are talking to Mr. Chris Nash, a special effects artist, writer, and director, best known for his work with Psycho Goreman in A Violent Nature, The Void, and ABCs of Death 2. Welcome.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
Our pleasure. Before we get into the meat of the interview, you want to let us know what you're currently working on?
Right now, currently working on the just finishing up the sequel to In a Violent Nature, and got a couple other writing projects and things like that on the go. But you never really want to talk too much about anything like that because it disappears so quickly.
Yes.
So you can't give any details about what this one's pretzel scene will be?
No, I can't.
I figured.
I can't do that.
Honestly, I wouldn't ask.
When that's all you have to offer, you can't really.
Right. Yeah.
I did go straight to the top.
Why don't you tell us how the movie ends? Yeah.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
Cool. Well, we'll be looking forward to that. This interview, though, is less about your body of work and more about what you yourself have been a fan of. That said, it's not meant to be a therapy session, so if there's any questions we ask that you don't want to answer, you just say pass and move on. But starting with childhood, what were some of your earliest memories of scary things?
Earliest memories of scary things. I think, there's quite a few. I've got a pretty irrational fear of water.
Okay.
And I think that it all stems back to like library books there's one book in particular that, that first time you see a lanternfish and you're just like, this is monstrous. But even, just looking at all these giant fish and then seeing a lake sturgeon and then finding out that, they're actually just in the lakes here.
Just in the lakes.
Yeah, exactly.
They're giant.
Exactly.
They're like the size of a small boat.
Yeah. And like when all you see is a picture and you're a kid and you're like, this is a thing. This isn't like a dinosaur. Mm-hmm. And it's where you're swimming. It really implanted something in me and I haven't been able to shake it. I'm still, I put on a brave face in the water, but no, I can't. I can't. And like going out on the ocean, no way. I don't know how to handle that, but so I mean, things like that. Those are always scary to me. Little thing, I guess. One of the things that really got to me when I was a kid, growing up in Northern Ontario, it was very religious, and I still grew up in the time. I guess I'm a kid of the '80s. I born in '82. But even then when I say that, I feel like, no, I'm really a kid of the 90s. Like, that's when I was really getting information and getting culture. But but during that time, we were still dealing with, it was still like Cold War period. It's still the idea that like nuclear war was going to happen. And we got a lot of media about that, whether it was movies or TV shows. Just the threat of imminent nuclear war was always something around the corner. And then beyond that, we were still in a period, at least here in Canada, where, religion wasn't really separated from school systems. So we had like religious studies in school. We had like prayer every day and stuff. And the first time with our religious studies instructor, we were basically reading like a children's Bible, but hearing the story of like Lot's wife turning into a pillar of salt, I couldn't wrap my head around it at all. It was just, like as a kid hearing that and like asking like, does she turn back or like, how does she turn back? And they're like, no, she doesn't. It's just salt now. I'm like, what do you mean?
Is she still conscious? Like,
yeah. What do you mean she's salt? It doesn't make sense to me. And that left a pretty indelible impression on me as far as just this idea of like body horror and like what we are as like a person and what that means.
interesting to call it like a body horror thing. I mean, I assume at that age you didn't really know what body horror was, but looking back on it, it kind of fits in that category, I guess.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, because you're looking at like your actual form turning into something else and becoming something else that is inhuman.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I always look at that as a body horror story for sure.
Fun fact:
Okay.
when I'm stressed out at work and having a real salty day, and people like ask me, "Hey, you feeling a little salty today, huh?" I go, "I am Lot's wife."
That's great. So just real thrown back with the old references, Old Testament references. Yeah,
most people don't get it, but those that do are like, "Damn, okay."
Oh boy. Let's see. So, Cold War, nuclear war, any particular books or stories or movies stand out to you?
I mean, like I was a kid that we like, growing up when I did too. This was the dawn of the VHS era, like renting where my first experience with videos is my dad renting a VHS with the videos, like, because we couldn't afford to buy one, but he still wanted to like bring stuff in. But yeah, my parents were pretty accepting, I guess, of us watching anything. I think it's just they both were always working on something. As I grew up, I feel like my parents were always doing renovations or finishing building our house. So I think in their minds, if the kids are quiet and watching something, we don't really care. We need to actually
stay out of our hair.
Roof on this place. Yeah. So some of the things that I watched when I was younger, like I remember, I might have been still in kindergarten, but asking my dad to rent Creepshow 2 and watching that. And like that just really freaking me out.
Wait, was Creepshow 2 the one with the raft?
Yeah, which didn't help.
I was going to ask if maybe you would watch Jaws or something with water at a younger age, which maybe might have triggered that. But yeah, it sounds like the raft. That's a good contender for that.
Yeah. And then a couple other ones, like one of the ones that really got to me was The Curse, which was...
the one with Christina Ricci?
No, that's Cursed. This was with Will Wheaton, and it was directed by David Keith. It was like an adaptation of The Color Out of Space, but done in like low budget 80s kind of way. And I remember in the same way as like my brain not being able to wrap itself around Lot's wife turning into a pillar of salt. Like one of the main things in this was the meteor comes down and it starts polluting everything in this farmhouse and this farmland, and it pollutes the water supply, and it's just kind of like expanding to the point where it's gonna just pollute everything in the world. And I remember the characters like not being able to drink water at a certain point, and being a kid and thinking like, well, what does that mean? Like you're just gonna eventually like run out of everything, run out of all resources, and turn into these monstrous little creatures. And it's this existential dread from that film. It stuck with me for a long time.
I can see how. While you were talking about it, I was actually pulled up the IMDb page and it's playing the trailer in the background.
In here, and I kind of remember what I remember the box art on this.
Exactly.
I never saw it, but I definitely remember that hand in the video store.
Yeah. Same.
Yeah.
Cool. It's interesting that you said that you may have been in kindergarten when you asked your father to rent Creepshow 2. That's pretty young, first of all, to even know what Creepshow 2 was, much less ask for it. Did you know you were asking for like a horror movie, or was it just like you like the box art kind of thing, or what?
No, I still had no understanding of what box art was. Like I still hadn't even been to a video store. I completely forget what it could have been that made me that brought it to my attention, whether it was a trailer on television or a trailer on another video that we watched. Like I have no idea how I was even aware, but yeah, the fact I asked for it and like it being, having Stephen King's names slapped on it too, to some degree. And I think my parents were probably aware, like my dad at least was probably aware of Creepshow, like the first one. So I couldn't tell you how I knew it existed.
Do you remember your reaction to seeing it?
No, I don't. I just have these, and this goes the same for even now. Like, if you tell me what happens in a movie I just watched, I'll barely be able to recall it. I kind of only have like an emotional recall to how I feel about films rather than what exactly happens in.
Well, even an emotional response to Creepshow 2. That's kind of what I was getting at, was any kind of memory or whatsoever. Because I would expect that one of two things: either it was exactly what you were expecting to get, but more than likely it probably was not.
I think I expected it to be more fun, for sure. Like, when you're a kid growing up, and even just like Halloween, you're excited about things. You like I always just liked that kind of like dark stuff, and there's a level of like misbehavior by being interested in like monsters and ghosts and all that stuff, so
especially back then when you had silly monsters like ghoulies or critters.
Yeah, exactly. Those were all ones that they were all part of the VHS collection that my dad rented at some point in time, and that's probably it. That's probably where I got a lot of it, was just watching one video, seeing a trailer for another one, and then just having that cascade till I watch all of these John Carl Buechler movies and no idea where they came from.
Well, one of the questions we normally ask our guests is, was there a dividing line where prior to the dividing line you were afraid of horror, and then after the dividing line you were a fan of horror? And kind of where I was even going with the kindergarten thing was, so we could ask you that question of where was the dividing line between fear and enjoyment, but it was kind of interesting that you even potentially knew what horror was before kindergarten, which kind of might muddy that line somewhere. But I guess let's start with the question of, was there a dividing line where before the dividing line it was scary, and then after it was enjoyable?
That's a really good question, because there definitely was a period where it was just scary, and then all of a sudden not so scary. I think probably around like Nightmare on Elm Street. I think like my first experience with, snappy horror villains, I guess. Just the kind of like smart alecky, like he was like, Freddy was the first one that was like throwing out one-liners, and you just and at that point it's permission not to take it seriously, regardless of what you're seeing. So
that makes sense.
It was more likely like my first exposure to something like that. I couldn't tell you for sure though.
Do you remember how old you were when you saw it?
No. I remember like the first ones, but then it's just, just sludge, just so much, so many. And also, like, I didn't grow up with, like, I grew up very rurally, so it was the type of thing where you had 5 channels. None of them were playing anything too interesting, and and so it was always like trips into the city and spending the weekends at my grandmother's house, where she had cable, and I would watch whatever I could. Just sat in front of the TV the whole time.
Enjoy it while you can.
Exactly. That's exactly it. That's, I think, the first time I watched Ghoulies was sitting in front of the TV at Grandma's house.
Nice. Did you have a Saturday afternoon matinee of some sorts that was like a horror Saturday afternoon matinee?
Not all the time. It was like the ABC affiliate. Because I grew up on a border town. We had like I grew up right on the border, not actually in the city, outside of the city, but we got a lot of American transmissions. So we had like the ABC, NBC, and CBS affiliates, but we didn't. It wasn't until I was like a teenager that a Fox affiliate came in. The ABC one, they had like a Saturday afternoon horror type thing. It was more just a Saturday afternoon movie, but like that's where I first watched like whatever god awful TV edit of Return of the Living Dead 2 or like the first Creepshow. That's where I watched it Saturday afternoon on whatever the Saturday afternoon movie was.
Okay.
Yeah,
was there anybody in your family who was a fan of horror when you were a kid?
Yeah, I think both my parents were. Something I've never really asked them about, but more books, I think. I remember, like my mom was a big Stephen King fan, always read a lot of Stephen King, and those were books that always had like I don't know if you recall ever seeing like one of the 80s covers for It, where it was just like the boat going down the street and it was like a sewer grate with like a reptilian claw that was coming out of the sewer grate. And, it just does wonders to your imagination of like, what is this? But I will never read it. But so they were, I don't know so much as like fans of horror, but definitely, it wasn't something that they shunned in any way.
I don't know if you're reading a 1,000-page book. You don't do that by accident.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a bit of dedication.
She always I know she always really liked Stephen King just because she just loved his character work.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's a good author, and could be considered like pop culture, not necessarily just horror.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
Did you participate in Halloween when you were a kid?
Yeah, as much as I could. I mean, like I said, growing up rurally, it was didn't have access to a lot of things. It was a lot of homemade costumes. It was a lot of wearing the same rubber mask over and over again, year after year, with a different jumpsuit underneath, kind of thing. But we always made the most out of Halloween.
We normally like to ask if you had a favorite costume or a least favorite costume. Sounds like you might have had a least favorite costume.
I had a costume. That was kind of...
That counts. It counts.
Yep.
Any scary dreams or reoccurring nightmares when you were a kid?
Yeah. I have no idea what this means at all. But I guess I have kind of grew up with a lot of like existential terror and more like weird things where I would just get really freaked out about things being out of place. So I had this one nightmare, and it would be like a nightmare that I would wake up sweating. And these sound ridiculous, and I'm sure they are layered in so much stuff that I'll never be able to understand. But one of them was like me holding a pencil in each hand that was sharpened to a point, and just not being able to touch the points together, like coming close, and the pencils draw closer and closer and closer together, but and the job was to have those points touch, but they would just never could. They always kept slipping out of the way. And what the fuck does that mean? Who knows? But
you have the subconscious fear of magnets.
So, sure. But I remember that being like something that I was like really like thrown off by. Actually, Flight of the Navigator.
Great movie.
The thing that freaked me out as a kid more than anything was when he like woke up from the ravine and went back to his house, and his house wasn't there. It was either his house wasn't there, or it was occupied with another family. That freaked me out like to no end.
What was that? It was
it's because he
traveled in time.
Yeah, he traveled in time. That's what it was. But like, I couldn't understand that as a kid watching.
Yeah, of course. Like, I was just all you can understand is exactly what you said. You get home and that's not my family.
And like, what does that mean? When you're young, and those things like really unsettled me. So nightmares like that, where I would be walking home from school and then my house wasn't there. Like it was just trees, and like the driveway was gone. Everything was gone. Things like that. I would have nightmares of. I had like a weird nightmare, and this is going to sound ridiculous, but it's the nightmare logic, right? We don't have to make any sense of it. But there was as I said, grew up rurally, dirt roads, kilometers between neighbors, and this one intersection of dirt roads, maybe like a mile and a half from where I grew up. Suddenly there was a KFC there. And it's just it's more or less the idea of like, this doesn't belong here. Like, this is out of place. Almost in a weird liminal space kind of like terror, where it was like unsettling, and it was like dangerous to go into almost. And I would see like other people in the neighborhood going in there in this dream and just being like, no, that doesn't belong here. And that was one that or different variations of that happened quite a bit when I was growing up.
Yeah. The thing about the thing about the pencils not touching, the first feeling that I get out of that is about failing to be able to make a connection. And my first thought was, did your parents divorce?
Unfortunately not, no.
Well, that might be a thing where it's, they were no longer connecting, and
Oh yeah, who knows? I mean, yeah, there's so many different potential reasons for it. Who knows?
yeah, the general emotional thing there that I would get out of it is either a desire to connect or something about the inability to connect to things.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe you were noticing some distance between your parents and wanting them to be closer together or something like that. I don't know. I'm totally grasping at straws there.
I'm still going magnets. It sounds like when you're trying to push two of the same pole magnets together, they don't want to.
Yeah, I think it's like definitely probably comes from some sense of not being able to accomplish things or not being able to like complete tasks in a certain
Mm-hmm.
way, or I definitely have this sense of perfectionism.
Can't relate.
It's just such a detriment to everything I do.
There's the phrase, don't let perfect be the enemy of complete, or something like that.
Of good.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. That's story of my life of just knowing that things could be a little bit better, I guess. And
I like the phrase that no art is ever finished. The artist just runs out of time.
Yeah. Yeah. I like that one too.
Yeah.
Was there ever a time in your childhood when you were terrified of something in real life?
We had different local legends that we kind of made up that we knew were fake, but you just let your brains go crazy on things. The down the street down the road from where I grew up, there was an old one-room schoolhouse that was attached to that was on the same property of the public school that I attended as a kid. And we would sit at the schoolyard and stare across it at this schoolhouse that was used as a storage facility for the Department of Education, and just convince each other that there was a guy in there with an axe, with a paper bag over his head, that we called the Paper Bag Axe Man.
That's an appropriate name.
Yeah, it was spot on, I'll tell you. But yeah, so there was stuff like that where we would definitely work each other up. But real life things that were scary, that I guess it was all things you just didn't understand as a child.
Okay.
There was I had a neighbor that was incredibly religious, and her family, all of her sons, were also brought up that way, but were rebelling, and she also was ended up being diagnosed schizophrenic. But when we would spend time at their house and, being not allowed to eat until we, said a prayer or something like that, and just being well, this isn't even our house. We don't go, I don't go to church. I don't do anything. And then one day she had a whole episode where she got all of, I was at a neighbor's house, and I just to set the stage. When I say we were kilometers apart, we weren't really kilometers apart, but it was a distance. These weren't houses side by side. It was huge swaths of trees or fields in between the houses. And I was at a neighbor's house when I was a kid, and she came here to the house because her kids were there too. We were all just playing around, and she just had a full blown schizophrenic episode around us. And we were just we had no idea what was going on. And she ended up just trying to corral all the kids together to tell us a secret. And somehow or another, my mother heard about what was happening. And I think the house that we were at, that family, the matriarch there didn't know how to quite handle it, and called my mom. And my mom came down, and because my uncle had, one of my uncles had mental health problems too. And I think they just thought that maybe she was able to handle it more. So I remember my mom just storming in and saying no, these kids don't need to hear this. And I think at that point in time, this woman was trying to tell us about a sexual assault that occurred when she was younger. And
nice.
It was just wow. As a kid, as when you're when you're 8, 9 years old, and you're sitting there with your friends, and this is happening, and these two adults are screaming at each other, and then one of them starts stripping off her clothes and running down a dirt road naked, calling my mom the devil, but also wearing giant those big green farmer shit kicker boots, those rubber boots, and that was like the only thing she was wearing. It creates an image for sure. That's with you, but yeah, and when you're a kid, all you could think of at the time is you're looking at her sons going like, it's going to be a rough day for you guys at school.
Yeah.
When we get back to it.
Yeah, all you can really do is, as an adult now, is hope that she got the help she needed. But I can certainly understand the awkwardness of the moment as a child.
Oh yeah, that's why I feel like almost all horrors are when you're a kid. It's just you just can't comprehend what's happening.
Yeah. Flipping that question around, was there ever a time in your childhood when you felt exceptionally calm or safe or bliss?
I think it was always an anxious kid. I think I always had like a lot of like dread in me for sure. I mean, just going out on your own, riding your bike around. When I look back at it, like I had a pretty fortunate childhood where we didn't have like a lot of like normal, I guess, social amenities where there was a corner store, but it was like 2 miles away. There was like no teen center or any kind of like third spaces where we would hang out. So we would always just go down, like ride our bikes down to the lake and swim.
Entertain yourselves.
Build forts. Yeah. Lots of forts getting built.
Finding neat sticks to fight with.
That's right. Perfect stick.
We had so much more than we wouldn't. You find sticks. We had like old farming equipment that we would find.
Oh, even better. Okay.
Yeah, like there was so much building weapons out of like giant gears and old rusty pitchforks, and part of having a fort as a kid was building the defenses for the fort. And like I'm so amazed that nobody died because we had like traps that were like if you walk through here.
So how many tetanus shots have you had?
not
Right.
as a kid. Tetanus isn't real when you're a kid.
Yeah, exactly.
But like you break a fishing line walking down a path, then all of a sudden it was like a Rambo trap where a giant log would just plummet down from the trees, or like another log that was full of like pitchfork tines would come like at your feet. It was we just
did you see Predator at an early age by any chance?
Yeah, we did.
Okay. Yeah, there it is. No, I'm right there with you, man. Like my friends and I used to do the same thing with our forts. Like, we'll do a tripwire here, and then it'll be a dead man's lift, and spikes coming out of here and stuff. And like, God, actually, I've never really thought about it, but looking back on it in retrospect, that is the kind of forts that my friends and I built. And had our parents known any inkling of the kind of booby traps we were making, they'd be like, "No, the hell is wrong with you?"
On the plus side, being kids, the booby traps probably didn't really work the way they're supposed to.
True. Yeah, I'm viewing this through the recollection of what I remember it being as a kid. So you're right. It probably was just like some very dull sticks that were taped to another stick with masking tape.
Even if they were sharp, the masking tape part that this is never going to work the way you think it is. Although God forbid the one time that you think it won't, and then it does. So the next two questions we're going to ask as a pair. We're going to start with the negative one so we can end on the positive one. Do you remember the first person you hurt?
Do I remember I don't think so.
Okay.
Like just trying to recall. I mean, I guess it depends on like whether we're talking like emotionally or physically.
Either one.
I think that it was probably just like teasing. When I was.
Did you have siblings?
Yeah, I had an older brother and two younger sisters that came into the fold when I was in like grade 1. But there was just a lot of like just community with all the kids in the neighborhood. But I remember one time, like one that just sits in my stomach as far as like thinking back on it and just really cringing was my neighbor Julie. And this was when part of like building forts, and we would each build like tree forts in the woods. And part of building the tree forts was like gathering munitions. So we would build them in pine trees, and we would grab pine cones as grenades. And it just would escalate to the point where like, we would sit in our forts. Each person like had an individual fort. Also, one of the things that I don't know how one of these families got a hold of them, but old soccer nets. And we had so many old soccer nets that we would just tie them up and just make make like spider web trails through the treetops.
Ooh, okay.
Yeah. Anyways, like, one of these battles ended up getting to a point where we all, like, some of us had slingshots and some of us didn't, but like one of us also had a pellet gun. We would fight each other. And I remember slingshotting with a pine cone, Julie, and it just hit her so close to her eye. And that was when, like, weapons down, peace treaty for the rest of my life. That was just so traumatic for me.
Yeah.
Well, fortunately, you didn't.
Oh, I know.
Yeah.
So many close calls.
Mm-hmm.
Flipping that question around, do you remember the first person you helped?
I think growing up the way I did, that a lot of us kids were always kind of like looking out for each other, and it just seemed like rather natural to do. So we were all just like helping each other in whatever ways we could, whether, you know, it was like fixing bikes or fixing each other's bikes or like, you know, building forts or anything, really. Teaching each other how to play video games. It's just so many things that seem kind of inconsequential and just all a part of growing up, but are so important to like what make you who you are.
Social, that's what I'm looking for. Well, socialization, really.
Yeah, I think also just the idea that you can't really like how I grew up, you couldn't pick your friends. There were so few people around that you just had, like, you were stuck with these people, and
this is it. Get along or you don't.
Yeah, get along. You have to find some common ground, or else you're just, you know, you're not doing anything. You're not going to any birthday parties. You're not doing anything. So
right.
And now a 10-second self-advertising spot. If you're in counseling or a 12-step program or know someone who is, Steve's book, A Guide to the Recovery Toolbox, would make a great gift. It's an introduction to more than 80 tools he's learned. Just Google A Guide to the Recovery Toolbox to find out more. Now back to the show.
Well, let's roll into teen years then. What movies or books or stories stand out to you from your teen years?
it just seems like such a mess of things.
Yeah.
I really started to zero in on more like existential horror, I think, as a teen. Like that's when I got really into John Carpenter, like watching In the Mouth of Madness for the first time. And just like, I remember that sticking with me a lot.
Okay. And
every little element of that film just really worked on a way that like got under my skin. And that was one of the first things that I guess taught me that it's like the small moments really make horror, less than like the big bombastic ones. For instance, when Sam Neill's character is like trying to drive out of town and keep seeing that kid on the bike, the old kid on the bike, like things like that were that's what I remember more than almost anything in film, other than the ending. Yeah, I think this sort of sense of like a night in hell. I started to really get into that stuff, and I also started to get into more, I guess, absurdist horror, and like really realizing like the very, very thin membrane between like absurdist comedy and existential horror, I guess. The way that you would look at like at quite a few, like that's where I first started watching, getting into David Lynch and being like a full of shit like kid who thinks he's like really smart and really gets things. But just like understanding like, oh, this is funny. Like it's supposed to be watching Wild at Heart and it's like throws you off. But then, as you start to mature, you realizing that these are comedic elements that are in here that work in a way that make the horror like really stand out. And yeah, at that point too, I think when I was in high school, one of the things that really hit me was I guess I just became more of a fan and more of that like kind of crate digger personality. In my local paper, there was like this section of the classified ads that was items under $25. And I was always going through that. And one day in there was like 75 issues of Fangoria for $25. It's like, I'll take that for sure.
Score.
It was a pretty great score. It had the first 5 issues in there too.
Nice.
And then that's when I just started like really, I guess, becoming more of a horror fan, and nothing really, by then I was past being scared, I suppose.
You mentioned David Lynch. Were you particularly referencing Eraserhead there or something else?
No, I was really late to the game on Eraserhead because like this was not, there's impossible to find stuff. It was it was all of his more mainstream stuff, all of his quote unquote Hollywood things like Wild at Heart and even like The Elephant Man and Blue Velvet. I remember specifically like shots watching when I was younger, like just the zoom into the ants in Blue Velvet, like crawling around the ear and stuff. Like all of that was really, really super hyper specific and just resonated in a way that I didn't know how to make any sense of.
As an adult now, would you have a word to put to it?
To put to that kind of feeling?
Well, you mentioned resonating, so describing how it is that you resonated, on what level, but emotional connection maybe.
It was like just a disruption, especially that film, which was so much about the undercurrents of, suburban life. And it puts you in a place where you're realizing like, oh, there's stuff going on here. And when you see just like all the ants like swarming the severed ear on the ground, and it's something that you just pass over any day, like things like that. I guess I started to look for more of that kind of thing in the real world, not so much like monster hunting, but also like in an empathetic way, where where you kind of understand that there's a lot more gray area to everything. And what you initially see, like whether it's a picture perfect, like picket fence house where something like really unsettling is there, or and it just carries with you to even going to school and looking at people that, from all that their appearance gives you, it feels like, oh yeah, they have a perfect life or they have got a perfect thing. And then being taught these lessons that, there's a lot more under the surface there, and everybody's got their own shit that they're dealing with. And I think like movies and like situations like that and watching like art like that definitely helped to bring that out, even though I feel like it probably wasn't aiming to do something like that or to reach people on that level.
No, might have been. I mean, like in your case, having that religious, devout, schizophrenic neighbor, I'm sure Lynch had his own weird experiences.
I would imagine he did.
I
mean, I think we're all kind of imagine he did.
I mean, what I'm getting at is it may not have been the exact same ones that you had, but he obviously had his own sensibilities and his own reaction to different things that he had lived through. You were going to say something?
Oh, no, go for it.
For In the Mouth of Madness, you mentioned you didn't want to spoil the ending, but instead of talking about what the ending was, do you want to share what your emotional reaction was to it?
Yeah, I think that In the Mouth of Madness was like my first real experience into like cosmic horror and the whole mindfuck genre. And where you kind of realize that everybody else is living in a different world than you are, and seeing that's kind of like what I got out of In the Mouth of Madness, where by the end you're just like, oh, you can't trust anything, and that doubling up with the cosmic horror and the existential horror and everything, you're always kind of like have an appreciation for your first, I guess, and that was definitely my first that I remember hitting me at that point in time.
Okay.
And now a 10-second self-advertising spot. If you like horror-themed webcomics, cannibalism, or necromancy, you can check out my webcomic at piecesofflesh.com. Now back to the show.
Moving into adult years then. If you were to pick maybe the top 2 or 3 things that really stand out to you in horror media from your adult years.
I guess it's kind of branching into my adult years, but because I would have been 17, so it's still a teen.
Yeah,
but
close enough.
Yeah, but I mean, Blair Witch was like such a game changer for me in always being interested in media, always being like feeling like I wanted to get into film in some way. I originally wanted to be an animator, and then I kind of lost patience with that, or just more than anything, just didn't get into any animation schools. But seeing that movie and seeing like that and feeling truly scared watching it. And it was the kind of thing where I remember I had just gotten my license. There's a graduated license system in Canada where like you don't get to drive by yourself until you're 17 and pass that kind of licensing. So it was, I literally just the day earlier had gotten my license and was able to drive by myself. So I picked up my girlfriend and some another friend of ours, and I drove half an hour into the city to go to the theater and watch Blair Witch. And I just remember the feeling driving home that night through the woods to drop people off, and how that stuck with me, and knowing that, okay, this is nonsense. Like, I'd done all the stuff. Internet 1.0 was happening there, so I knew all the like publicity lore and everything like that, and I thought that was all amazing. But knowing all that and still feeling like creeped out by just the trees.
You can know facts and stuff, but reptilian brain's still going to say there's someone behind you in the backseat.
Exactly. That's exactly it. And constantly like looking in the rearview mirror and just being on edge the whole time. And just feeling, oh, this is a good movie. Like, this really did something to me.
Yeah, it was effective.
Yeah. And then, what are some other things? I'm definitely not pronouncing it right, but like Noroi the Curse. When I finally watched that was, I mean, it's another found footage, but I find found footage so hard to actually execute well.
Yeah, there's so many variants. There's the shaky cam element, the annoying characters. The really the big one is, why are you still holding the camera?
Yeah, like finding that reason,
or how is it still pointed in this direction? Yeah,
yeah, and also trying to avoid that the excuse of like, when I look through the camera, nothing's real, or it is real, and just like, okay, all right. This is definitely this is definitely a writer writing this line. But that, and really trying to think back. Actually, have either of you seen that Chris Morris show, Jam?
I have not.
Doesn't ring a bell.
I don't know whether, I think it's just Jam. The radio show is Blue Jam, but it's a sketch comedy show. I think it ran 2 seasons. It's one of the scariest things ever made.
Really?
Yeah.
It's a British comedy show. I mean, it's potentially scary, yeah.
Oh, it's how it was filmed, and like the soundtrack behind everything is just this like really, kind of airy lo-fi electronic stuff like Boards of Canada or like Aphex Twin, and it just, everything about it. And there's also just a soundscape that runs through every single sketch, and all the sketches are just these absurdist nightmares.
I am going to check this out. You had me at Boards of Canada and sold me at Aphex Twin.
Yeah, you really, really should check this out, because like one of the sketches is just like a repairman comes in because this person's TV is broken and it's full of lizards.
Okay.
And just the repairman.
Well, there's your problem right there.
Exactly. But it's like,
so wait, is it like Tim and Eric, only not cringe?
It's no, it's on another level. It's okay. It's
meaning like odd for odd's sake.
It is that thing of one person feeling like they're going crazy because everybody else is reacting to this as if it's normal. It's almost like a reverse I Think You Should Leave, where like I feel like every I Think You Should Leave sketch is like Tim Robinson trying to act like this insanity is normal while everyone else is like, no, it's like you're being crazy right now. Whereas Jam is one person going like, the world's gone crazy, and the world be going like, no, you just don't understand what's happening. But it, there's one sketch where like it's pretty popular. It's one of the like more well-known ones, and it's this mother. There's a knock on a door, and it's a plumber who's come in, and he's like, "I'm the plumber. I'm here to help your problem." And it's this mother who says, "Oh, the problem's up here," and escorts her to this nursery and points down into a crib, and her child is like dying. And she doesn't know who to call, so she called a plumber, and she refuses to let him leave until he helps her. And it just ends with this: you see all these pipes and stuff coming out of the crib, that the plumber's just like trying to be like, I did what I could. I don't know if this is going to help at all, but like there's steam coming out of it, and it's just clear. Yeah, it's just clear. But with this like breathy soundtrack, and like it's almost like there's the soundscape behind it has like a constant moaning. It's a wild show.
What's the shit? Fuck, I can't think of it.
The one with the green bird and the guy with the red stringy face?
No.
Okay, not Don't Hug Me, I'm Scared.
Although Don't Hug Me, I'm Scared is great too, but I'm thinking that there's something about people being in this house.
Oh, this house has people in it?
Yes.
No. Is that the
No, I don't know. I was just going to reference it and say if you had never seen it, that you'd probably enjoy that. But being that you know the name of it, clearly you know what I'm talking about. So
yeah, it's like that Adult Swim, like Alan Resnick. I think he's like another like a kind of absurdist horror.
Yeah, he's done a couple things.
Yeah, it's is it the one where the daughter is sinking through the floor?
Yes.
Yes. This house has people in it. That's what it was called. Yeah. Yeah. No, he's great. And it's that same vein, almost the exact same vein as what Chris Morris was doing with Jam.
Okay.
It's really great, really, really bizarre, like gets under your skin kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm. Love it.
What's the other thing that he did? Something about bears.
Oh,
unedited footage of a bear.
Yes, thank you.
Yep. Classic.
Have you seen Alan Tutorial? It was this like web series on YouTube.
I think so.
It gets like wacky. It starts off with a series that are just tutorials, because the YouTube at that point in time there was so many tutorials going around of, almost like marketed towards the most inept people that couldn't do anything of like a tutorial. Yeah. And it started out as kind of a joke on that of like a tutorial of how to lift up a chair. And it was just a guy like the character behind the camera lifting up a chair, a tutorial how to open this. And then it starts to spin off into like its own weird like ARG of, I forget how it goes, but it's like you slowly start to discover who the guy doing the tutorials is. And he was doing that for years, but yeah, he's really great.
Yep. Let's see. You mentioned Nora the Curse, but then kind of shifted gears into something else. What was it that you liked about Nora?
Oh, it's the same thing. It was just that kind of like lightning in a bottle found footage element where it just works, and it was all structured much more so than Blair Witch into the framework of a documentary film. But it had that Russian nesting doll type thing where you're hearing people tell stories, or you're getting a piece of media, like a character like finding a video, and in that video somebody is telling a story of something else that happened. And there's something about I've always felt, and this happens in like Lovecraft's work too, where characters find diaries and you're suddenly reading the diary where the person in the diary is telling the story that somebody told them.
Yeah.
And something happens. I don't know what happens psychologically, but something happens where the story and a story and a story becomes real in my brain. And I don't know why that happens, but it becomes so almost like the more it gets buried under different levels within the story, it gets further away from the artifice. So I just really love that. I love like how that happens. And I don't know what it is, but it just becomes more like plausible in some way.
Cool. Have you encountered SCP?
Mm-hmm.
No.
Secure, Contain, Protect. Really? Okay.
Oh, the actual thing, or like one in real life?
No.
Have you?
Yes, right. Yeah.
My buddy Trevor made a Siren Head.
We've interviewed him.
You've interviewed Trevor.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Didn't know that you knew him.
Yeah, no, he's from he's part of like the small little Toronto group of nerds, of horror nerds.
Misfit toys, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But that's cool. As close as I can.
Okay.
That rabbit hole is so deep.
It is. It is.
I think.
I mean, it's been going for like 10, 15, 20 years, something like that.
Yeah.
Like I think SCP rabbit hole is second only to Reddit in general. Right. You could spend months on SCP.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm already at the point where like I don't want to teach myself how to use Photoshop because I'm like, it's too deep now. I can't. Right. There's so much to learn. So far behind even starting to get into the SCP it's just too much. Mm-hmm. I'll tell you that it's off topic but kind of current. That either of you seen the trailer for the Backrooms?
Yes, it looks good. I was skeptical at first, but I've seen the trailer and it looks good.
I was so skeptical. I was so like, this is like, there's no way this is going to be good. But man, that looks really good.
I love how they incorporate they're taking a camcorder with them. So then, you have the actual like old school analog look.
Yeah. They're really like, and making that excuse to do it. Oh, it just looks, I'm really excited for that one.
Yeah. They definitely have some scenes that look different than the usual like yellow wallpaper.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know anything about the Backrooms lore really, other than like the initial setup for it. So I'm gonna stay in the dark as much as I can.
That's probably a good idea. There's not really much to it, but yeah, keep it oblivious. It's better that way.
So as an adult now, do you participate in Halloween dress up? Favorite costume, least favorite costume?
No, I'm the worst for Halloween these days.
I do this for a living now.
That's kind of it. Like when I started working more professionally in the prosthetics field, I just, it just gets kind of exhausting, and you're just like, I don't really feel like dressing up. And I never do. And I've just also become more of a homebody where I'm not really going out too much, or I'll be the person showing up with like, it's exactly like when I was a kid. I show up with an old mask and a new uniform for that mask. And that's about it.
Yeah. Can relate. I've got one costume that if I wear anything at all, it's just the one thing, the same thing every year. I don't give a shit.
You're
that's
lucky I'm here.
You at least put a cape on it or something.
I'll bring in a cape to the fold now. That's easy.
There you go.
It is going to be an old blanket, but it's still going to be.
It works. As long as it's got the satin around the edge.
Oh yeah. It's fancy. I'm going to be a fancy ghoul. Yeah, for sure.
Any scary dreams or recurring nightmares other than the ones that we've talked about earlier?
No.
As an adult, I mean.
No. My dreaming has like plummeted as an adult. To the point where like I don't even remember. I barely remember any kind of dream now.
Same here.
Anything scare you in real life as an adult?
Everything.
Yeah.
Responsibility. Yeah. That's pretty much it. No, it's I feel like I've really like just chilled out over the last 8-10 years to a point where like, I don't know, nothing seems to bother me too much anymore. And I think you just get to a point where you realize like, I've gotten through it this one up to here. I'm probably gonna keep getting through it no matter what it is. So yeah,
life's been good so far.
Yeah, that's exactly it. And it's it's kind of to a detriment.
My Maserati goes 185. Sorry, I had to.
My Ford Escape goes pretty fast too.
Flipping that question around, has there been a time in your adult life when you're exceptionally calm or say a third place?
Really is like just the majority of time right now. I'm just I feel like finally finding like some success in my career has changed things for me a lot. Stability, but with that stability comes many more new responsibilities that and a lot more anxieties and stresses. But I think it's just with age where you start to just become more comfortable with the stress and with the anxiety and just that attitude of like, as long as we keep working at it, we'll get through it. So yeah, that's kind of like my attitude of
it's a dangerously positive attitude, sir. I don't know about that. I don't know.
It is. It's terrible. Yeah.
Favorite Dilbert cartoon was Catbert talking to Wally and telling him, if I don't start hearing some screams of pain from you, we're going to have to start charging admission.
Yeah. It's kind of like where I'm at, where I'm just feeling like, where you kind of wish that I don't know, just that like more anarchistic kind of attitude, that punk rock part of being a teenager where you're fighting against the machine. And then you get to the maturity of realizing like, it's all a machine. Punk rock is a machine. And that's apathy.
Yeah. It's funny that you mentioned that because one of the first people we interviewed the first season was Simon Bamford, who was into punk back in the day. And I guess there was some movie, I can't remember who made it, but basically it was somebody from the punk movement. And they did a movie where they basically sat down and was like, you think you're being so punk, but we planned this shit basically from the very start. We told you what to buy, what to do, what, the fashion, and you just followed us just like people who followed everything throughout history. And he said he left the movie theater feeling very disillusioned after that.
Was that the Great Rock and Roll Swindle?
Maybe, yeah, with the Sex Pistols and how they were all based on like a clothing label.
Yes, yeah, the Julian Temple one, yeah.
Yep.
Maybe.
Yeah, okay.
I'd have to go back and listen to it. I don't remember off the top of my head, but that sounds like it might be it.
Mm-hmm.
Funny. Let's see. So, do these two questions again, starting on the negative, so we can end on the positive. Do you remember the last person you hurt?
Where I feel like I really hurt them? Yeah, it was definitely like a relationship situation. Okay. And that's all I'll go into.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you remember the last person you helped?
Yes, I do. And that's all I'll go into. Yeah.
Okay. Let's see. All right. So the next question is going to be over your entire life and not just about horror. What movie would you say you've watched more times than any other?
Oh, it's a toss-up between three, for sure. Okay. One of them is definitely Mick Garris's The Stand.
Okay.
I feel like there was a summer where like we taped it off of television when it aired, but I feel like there was a summer where I watched that movie almost every day, where I was just like, my entire life revolved around media intake, and there was a point where I could put it on, and then by the time it finished, that's when The Simpsons would come on. So I was just like wasting my summers in just watching The Stand over and over again. And another one that I watched repeatedly, watched a lot of, was it's a short film, but actually no, it's a toss-up between the short film and what it was attached to. But there's a animated short called Jack Mack and Rad Boy Go by Wes Archer, and it was kind of like, you look at it and it's like a much more like punk rock proto, like Beavis and Butthead, about just these two like trasher 80s punk guys trying to get beer, and then they start like a nuclear apocalypse, and it ends with them in hell. But Wes Archer wrote and directed that, and then he went on to do like Simpsons and King of the Hill, and his illustrious career in animation. And it was on the same tape that Evil Dead 2 was on, and so I watched Evil Dead 2 quite a bit too. Other than that, The Natural could be my favorite film of all time, and I've seen that countless times.
What'd you like about The Natural?
I do. I just think it's almost like a perfect movie. It's, runs a little long, but like I don't feel any bit of it. And I really like baseball. I really like baseball movies. I like baseball movies more than I like baseball, I think. and The Natural, I don't know whether it captured this kind of like folkloric nature of baseball or whether it invented it in my brain. But there's just something about like the magic realism in it that when I was younger, I thought was like way more magical than it actually is. But yeah, I don't know. Natural is just kind of a perfect movie with amazing performances, just directed to a T.
I get what you mean about liking baseball movies better than baseball, because the best analogy I can give for it is that, and it's different at different levels of the game. Like T-ball is obviously different from the pro leagues, but the problem for me is that watching the pros play baseball is like fucking watching chess.
Yeah.
There's so much going on and so much thought going into it that it's just like, just fucking play the game, goddammit.
Now they added a clock to the pitcher. He's only got like 8 seconds to pitch.
Right.
It's insanity.
Yeah, I don't know.
Which is the same way that they make chess more interesting. You do it on a time.
Oh my God. It's chess.
I feel like you remove so much of like you remove a lot by having that pitch clock on. There's just something about like being able to like keep the batter on their toes too, without the pitch clock. And I don't know how I feel about it. Definitely moves the games faster though.
It does do that. That's kind of one of the complaints people have about baseball, is it takes so long.
Well, but going back to the magic realism part of it, there's something about that interests you.
Yeah, just I think there is some kind of like childlike wonder of seeing these things where like, especially in the natural, where you kind of want to apply a bit of divinity to it, like, and a bit of magic to it, when you can easily, make the argument that, like, no, it's got nothing to do with that. It's all just based in reality. But riding that line, and especially and like definitely like exploiting that line, well, just with the actual just like cinematic storytelling, I just really love that movie.
What'd you like about The Stand, other than the fact that it rolled into The Simpsons?
Oh, I think the first 10 minutes of The Stand, of the Mick Garris Stand, like ending with the Don't Fear the Reaper, like ending with the end of the Don't Fear the Reaper montage is like perfect. It is just so good. Yeah, I just really like that. And it was fun at the time.
What do you like about those first 10 minutes?
Oh, setting up the actual virus, and then the montage going into the like CDC. I don't know if it was the CDC in the actual film or not, but and just like being able to do that kind of storytelling, and just like Don't Fear the Reaper playing over top of it, like thematically and also musically, was just the perfect song to choose for that. And there's something about when you do find that incredibly perfect like symbiosis of music and image on many different levels. It's like Scorsese level storytelling.
So it sounds like it was more about the artistic impression than necessarily the emotional, weight of whatever it was that's going on in the movie.
Oh, it was both for sure. It was just like, it was just great, but it set the stage in such a way of like what this whole thing was going to be, that was just really, really masterful. When you look at that, I don't know if you watched like the latest adaptation of The Stand, but it's just so sloppy compared to what they were able to do for network television in the 90s.
So the latest one is okay. Yeah, I remember watching some of the 90s one, but there's a newer one.
Yeah, there was one like with like Alexander Skarsgård as Randall Flagg, and a couple of it came in very little fanfare.
Apparently, I never heard of it.
So what was the emotional weight of the that intro in the Mick Garris version?
Whoopi Goldberg. I'm sorry, guys. I was looking up the 2020 to Stand.
Yeah.
All right, moving on to the next question.
Yeah, maybe it came out around like COVID lockdown time, and it was just like on the wrong side of that hump when people weren't just sitting and watching TV.
Right. Maybe. Evil Dead 2, that was the first time that came up. What'd you like about that one?
Yeah.
Oh, Evil Dead 2 is it's just another kind of perfect movie. That was just around the same time of realizing that that you could like have fun in the horror genre, and that it could be used as just like a background and a backdrop to telling whatever kind of stories you wanted to tell.
Yeah.
And like I didn't know that Army of Darkness was like a sequel to Evil Dead 2. Because they didn't title it Evil Dead 3. I always just thought it was like a standalone thing, and then I watched Army of Darkness and I was like, this movie is great. And then I forget, it was probably like somebody's cool older cousin or something that ended up informing me that like that first like couple of minutes is its own series of movies. And then I watched those and was like, oh yeah, these are like amazing. Like, and especially Evil Dead 2. Just, I think at that point in time, I started to become a lot more aware of like filmmaking technique as well, and seeing and understanding what Sam Raimi was doing with the camera and how he like visually told the story, and how that visual language like affected you and built like an engine, like an internal engine for the movie itself. I was just like so impressed, and honestly like just continue to be impressed. watching that movie. Anytime I watch it again, and you could just see like even somebody like Baz Luhrmann. Like I can't watch Romeo and Juliet without seeing like, oh, you're stealing so much from Sam Raimi in your directorial style. Like, and just how, I feel like he doesn't quite get his flowers for being a visual storyteller.
He definitely has his own style.
Yeah. Yeah. And he can do any style too. Like he's just, whether it's Evil Dead 2 or Evil Dead or A Simple Plan or For Love of the Game. Like he's just, just great.
Did he do Darkman too?
Yep.
Yeah.
So in terms of common themes, do you see any common themes about what kind of horror you like? Cannibalism, occult, metaphysical, supernatural?
I'm really into like existential horror and cosmic horror and body horror more than anything. And I feel like they all kind of live in the same world. Like I like whether that's just kind of like corporeal horror in a weird way, like the horror of being human.
I mean, that must have been just the best to be able to work on The Void then, because that's all three of those.
Yeah. It's got everything. Yeah, The Void was my first like being on a real set movie that I worked on.
Nice.
That was a lot of fun. That was just because Steve at that point in time, Steve and I, we had each done a segment for ABC's too, and we were both just like friends through my producing partner Peter Koplowski. Peter started as like a film programmer. He actually programs Midnight Madness at TIFF right now, and he has been for quite a few years. But he started out working for this film festival called the Toronto After Dark Film Festival, and he was the shorts programmer there. And he's just amazing at linking people together. So, he watched my short, and then he watched some of Steve's shorts, and he's very much a person that is always feeling like you two should meet and you two should hang out.
Mm-hmm.
So
it's interesting.
Yeah.
I never thought about that with anthologies like ABCs of Death or VHS, or I bet a lot of new cinematic team ups happen as a result of so many different people working together on these anthology movies.
Well, it's just you just get to know people too, right? Like whether
exactly.
you're teaming up or not. I ended up getting to know a lot more people through the first ABCs of Death film. Mm-hmm. They one of the great things about the ABCs of Death movies is they always opened up one letter to a public contest.
Nice.
Which was so for the first ABCs of Death film, it was T. They had the letter T. It was a filmmaking challenge.
Oh, shit.
Yeah. So the one that ended up becoming in the film T is for Toilet was Lee Hardcastle's stop motion animator. I think he's in London, but yeah. So there was like a Facebook page with that had all the submissions on it, and then the submissions had their own forum. And so I submitted one for that, and I ended up just getting to know and getting exposed to a lot of different filmmakers through that contest itself.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I meant. Not teaming up for the anthology itself, but just meeting several people as a result of doing an anthology, and then maybe afterwards you have team ups.
Yeah, or just always even just having somebody that you can bounce ideas off of that you're like, oh, I totally respect what you're doing, and yeah,
cool. So where you had said existential, cosmic, and body horror, the word that I'm coming up with that I see as a through line is dissociative.
You'll have to go deeper into that. I don't know.
So, liminal, you don't belong here, compartmentalization of, I am not a part of this world. I'm not a part of whatever is going on around me. That whole you don't belong here feeling, the term for that typically is dissociative. I'm disassociating with whatever it is that's happening around me. And that really is kind of true of pretty much everything that we've talked about, except for, which I find really interesting, the natural, which seems like it's the opposite is I am home. I do belong here. If that makes any sense.
Yeah, it is. And it's very much about a fight to belong too. Yeah. I mean, I'm not going to argue with any of that. That's definitely seems to be where a lot of my interests lie, and a lot of what I find to be scary for sure is just, yeah.
That's an interesting wording that I'm glad that you said, because I was about to ask why that's important to you. But when you say that's what I find scary, it maybe puts it into sort of a negative image for me. One of the images I like to use sometimes on this podcast is if you think about standing at a street corner, two roads intersecting. If you look up at the street sign, it might say, First Street North. And then when you look in the other direction, it says First Street South. But it's the same road. And in a lot of ways, sometimes fears and desires can be like this, where if you know what you're afraid of, it can maybe tell you something about what it is that you desire. Or if you know what it is you desire, it can tell you something about what you're afraid of. And so maybe there's something here about this sense of community or society that is important to you, and maybe that's why you're afraid of disassociating from it, if that makes any sense.
The way you explain it makes sense. I don't know if it relates so much.
Okay.
I kind of, because I do have like a real hermiting instinct, but I don't know how common that is. Part of what it is, I don't know how to explain this. I used to suffer from a lot of depression. Like I used to be very, very like clinically depressed. Mm-hmm. And I think there's a lot of people that have like undiagnosed clinical depression who just assume that that's the way everybody is. Mm-hmm. And so part of me does feel like, doesn't everybody have this instinct to run out in the woods and live in a shack? Mm-hmm. But that's where that's kind of like where my heart is all the time, is to just like go befriend squirrels and and cast society aside. So I don't know whether or not it's like even that just comes from a more of a deep-rooted fear of like trying to get ahead of being cast out, like casting out society before they can cast me out. Not sure. But right now, this could all just be coming from a point of just like resisting that and feeling like, no, that's not me. I'm strong. I don't need nobody. I'm a lone wolf. But meanwhile, I'm terrified.
Yeah, those are all possibilities. I can definitely relate. I mean,
It's all of it. Same.
We were talking before we hit record about, Chris and I both being in IT. I've been doing IT for over 20 years now, and I'm very close to wanting to just retire and, go buy a couple acres out in the middle of the woods and,
Yeah. Do you think that comes from like feeling like I don't know. I was thinking about this today in terms of, I think like the first 40 years of my life, you kind of under the assumption of like, that's you figuring out the world, when even that mentality puts you at an opposition to the world. Whereas like, I feel like really the first 40 years is the world figuring you out, being like, who is this person? Mm-hmm. And then once you get past that, then like you're in kind of this really like slowed down, calmer nature where now it's your turn to figure out what the world is and like live in this relationship, this reciprocal relationship that was always there. But
for me, there's that saying that those who refuse to study history are doomed to repeat it. And I like the corollary to it, which is, and those of us who have studied history are doomed to watch those of you who haven't repeat it. And that's kind of where I'm at, is, wondering whether or not the world is going to figure me out. I'm just like, I've accepted the fact that the world is not going to figure me out. So I'm just like, fuck this, I'm out.
Yeah. Just buy your Harley and just cruise down the open road.
Yeah.
Yep.
You can't change the world. The world isn't going to figure it out on its own. I wash my hands of it. I'm done. Like, you figure it out.
Pretty much, yeah.
I'm not quite there. I'm trying to be a little more optimistic about that. I'm really trying to fight. Yeah,
I'm not quite there yet either. But that's what I'm saying. It's like I feel it growing.
Mm-hmm. But the door is open and you can see through to the other side.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So one of the follow-up questions that we usually ask at this point then is, why horror? Can't you explore these things in other genres, or do you?
Well, I think when you do explore any of these things in another genre, it becomes horror anyway. I think that there's something really intrinsic about it that makes it horrific. I'm trying to think of some immediately that come to mind, which are horror movies that aren't horror movies, but have all of the same hallmarks of being one.
Mm-hmm.
I think
Sci-fi movies, perhaps.
no. More even like dramatic films or comedies where there's something about them that you take a step back and you're like, oh, this is kind of a horror movie.
When we talked to John Skip, he had a very similar experience where he was watching, I think it was Amadeus, with a bunch of friends who didn't want to watch horror movies, and realizing that it, from a certain character's perspective, that Amadeus was a horror movie.
Yeah. I felt that way with that movie that came out a couple of years ago, that with Tim Robinson and Paul Rudd, Friendship, where like I really liked that film. I laughed once during that entire movie.
You weren't supposed to laugh.
That's kind of like how I felt. I was just, but I was like, oh, this is great, and this is like a really this is kind of like very much like a societal horror film. Mm-hmm. And so I think that whenever you delve into these kind of like questions, it just something about it becomes horror. But also, like, horror is just a fun, like a much funner sandbox to play in. Mm-hmm. I think that we're missing a lot of horror filmmakers. There's no shortage of horror content, but I feel like there is a very definite shortage of like horror authorship. I don't know what the answer to that is, but I just feel like a lot of people say that they're into horror and all they want is Little Miss Sunshine with zombies, where it's not like you don't want to be forced to ask yourself about the world. You just want to be able to there's this really twee kind of chibification of horror that's gone through in pop culture these days. And I can't wait to get to the other side of that and just end up with more filmmakers like Larry Cohen or like Jeff Lieberman, who kind of more apt to look at the world through with a horror lens, but still tackle societal questions.
Mm. On the topic of shortage of horror authorship, I would push back a little bit and say that it might be true that there is a relative shortage of it on the film side, but I think on the literary side, one of the cool things about, so I went to StokerCon in 2023, which is the convention for the Horror Writers Association of America, or might not even be of America, just Horror Writers Association.
Yeah,
and, one of the things that Chris and I do for this podcast because, there's only so many hours in a day and you have to figure out, okay, who is it that we're going to talk to? And we try to look for guests who have worked on multiple horror movies, because, for example, if you only work on 2 movies and then you never work on another horror film, then the question becomes, okay, are you a horror fan, or did you just do that to get your foot in the door and then you pivot out? And so that kind of, on the plus side, it does restrict our potential guest list, but on the downside, it also can restrict our potential guest list. And, when I went to StokerCon, I had this sort of like light bulb moment where I realized, well, shit, wait a minute. If you're a hot horror, like, I don't have to vet you being a horror fan if you wrote an 80,000 word novel. Like, you're not going to do that if you're not a horror fan. So, on the literary side, it's a lot easier.
Like writing words.
Oh. Well, but it's a lot easier to quantify that on the literary side. But, that doesn't mean that you're going to get the budget to turn it into a movie. And in some cases, you may not even really be able to turn it into a movie, because then there are certain things where it's like, okay, how am I going to film this under $100 million kind of thing?
Right.
Or how you're going to film it, period.
Right.
Like, just with like converting prose into, more often than not, prose should just be prose and not try to make a film out of it. But
in a lot of ways, the imagination is a better filmmaker than Hollywood could be, even if it wanted to be,
I think there's something to that as well with like actual authors, where film takes its time too, and you're lucky if you can get one out a year. But like right now, like even with the sequel, like we're encroaching on like 2 years with this to just get this like finished up from writing to being being delivered. But there's still a social aspect to it, whereas you don't have that when you're like just a writer in a room, just dealing with your own thoughts, and you gotta, I feel like it's
very
more
antisocial, actually. A lot of writers are very much shut-ins.
So
Well,
it seems like much more of a proving ground as far as like, vetting whether or not you actually care about it.
Well, there is definitely a social side to the author side too. Again, using StoryCon as a reference, if you go to a horror literary convention, you've got 40 different authors. There is a good social group behind it, but I do take your point in that, the creation of the work can be more
insular. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm just like branching off a bit. Have either of you seen The Eclipse? Connor McPherson wrote and directed it. It's got I can't not pronounce his name right, but Ciarán Hinds.
I think Chris brought this up, but I have not seen it.
It's a beautiful, beautiful movie. It's like equal parts horror and romance and like satire. But it all takes place during a literary convention. I just try to bring that up whenever I can, whenever it pops into my mind. It's a great movie.
I have not seen this movie, but I like Ciarán Hinds.
It's a gorgeous film. I don't know why it didn't catch fire, at least within like snobby filmmaking circles, because it leans a little more into like just drama and romance than it does horror, but like the horror in it is really effective.
Yeah, I'll have to check that out. Cool. Well, I think we got a pretty good summary of your common theme and why it's important to you. I guess really the last question here is there anything that you think is relevant that you didn't get a chance to say? Maybe the conversation took a left turn and
no, I don't think so. I feel like conversation went where it needed to go.
Okay, cool. Well, thank you very much for your time. We're going to put together a bio page for you and get some pictures and link to whatever it is that you want us to link to. Do you want to, again, before we hit the closing, let everybody know what you're currently working on?
Just like I said, wrapping up the sequel to In a Violent Nature at the moment, and then I have a couple other projects, and then looking forward to doing something outside of doing something a little more body horror and a little more existential than following a guy through the woods.
Cool. Well, again, thank you to anybody, to you and to anybody else out there listening. If you want to find out more about Mr. Nash's work, you just go to horrormakesushappy.com, go to the episodes page, scroll down till you find his link and click on that. That'll take you to the bio and we'll link to whatever it is that you would like us to link to. Other than that, like, share, subscribe, tell a friend.